There we go. Right. Oh, not at the beginning. There it goes. Giving away all my secrets. Okay. Right. So today we're here, and actually this may be the wrong presentation. Let's see. And that's what happens. Yes, I have two open. Look at that. Bad idea. There we go. Here we go. All right.
Oop, I think it's still sharing the old screen.
Oh no, really? I see
Yeah,
the new
you gotta
one.
stop. Yeah,
Oh, I gotta stop and
yeah, once you pick a window, it will only
God.
show that window.
Well, thank you so much. You're filling in for the tech
Yeah.
team here today. There we go. Now you see hot seat, LinkedIn hot seats. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, cool. So the biggest question I get asked about LinkedIn and my clients and everybody who I work with, everyone I know, is how do you unlock the lead generation potential of LinkedIn? So whether you're growing your own company or whether you're just trying to maybe, make some connections and network so that you can get job leads, whatever kind of leads you're looking for, people are always wondering, that's what I want to use LinkedIn for. I just want to find leads. But I think one of the mistakes that people make is they think that lead generation is all about tactics. And so tactics like how many times should I be posting a week, and how many times should I be updating my profile every year, or what do I need to do to make sure that I'm growing my audience, like all of those kinds of questions. And I love to talk about tactics. I have my own views about all those kinds of questions, and I'll share a guide with you in a second. Make a note of that for myself, but I'll share the link to my guide that I have that sort of answers all of those questions. But the thing is, once you're good on tactics, really you can't move the needle on LinkedIn anymore until you really focus in on your content. So that's why I always say, once you've got the tactics down, once you've got the basics pretty laid out, let's talk about, why you're not getting more conversations started or why you're not getting more people DMing you and that kind of thing. It probably has something to do with the content that you're creating. So what I really love to do is workshop content. And so that's kind of how I've morphed these hot seat events. I know Amanda showed up to an earlier one where we really did talk about tactics. I looked at people's profiles. I said, do this, do that, do that. And it was really fun. And I'm willing and happy to do that with folks who jump on these calls with me. But I really think that it's also important to focus in on the content you're creating yourself. So I say the number one thing you can do if you got the tactics nailed is figure out how you can safely share your innovative ideas on LinkedIn. So I think there's a big difference between, shock marketing and, it's easy to think, okay, well, if I'm going to get people talking on LinkedIn, then I'm just going to go for the low hanging fruit. I know that this will piss some people off, so let me talk about that. It gets really tempting to do that kind of thing. And what I'm saying is you don't have to go there in order to get the attention that you're looking for. You don't have to go there in order to get leads, but you do want to share ideas that are controversial. And that's what I think of as innovative ideas. There are ideas that may be half baked for you. You're kind of playing with them. You're experimenting. I say, go for that kind of stuff on LinkedIn, play with stuff, think about the idea that maybe makes you a little bit scared to share, but it's not going to piss people off. That's not your style, right? But you've got these innovative ideas and you're just like it feels scary to share them on LinkedIn. So what I want to do is kind of think about how to make that happen. I had a speaking coach one time, and what she said is, when you get on stage, you've got 30 seconds to grab your audience, right? To get them engaged. She said, what I want you to do in those 30 seconds is make your audience make a decision about you. That could be up, that could be down. It doesn't really matter, right? But the thing, when you make someone think in that way, like decide if they really want to listen to you in that moment, what it does is it engages them, right? If they disagree with you, then they want to hear more. You want to know exactly why they disagree with you. If they agree with you, then of course they want to hear more. They want to know what to do with that information, right? So have people make a decision about you. And so I take that into my LinkedIn presence as well. And that's really what I mean about innovative, something a little polarizing, something galvanizing, getting people excited, and innovative mainly. So if you do have those tactics down and you're still not getting the kind of leads you're looking for, I want you to ask yourself a few questions, right? When was the last time you shared a half-baked idea? Right? It's scary to share new ideas. It's scary to share things we haven't worked through. My perfectionism jumps up in my brain like, ooh, I don't know. I probably should think about this more before I put it out there. But what I find is the half-baked ideas have the most fodder for communication, create the most conversations, get people talking, because they can ask you questions. When you've perfected this thing and written this beautiful post that is like your considered view, no one's going to push you off of that view, then often there's nothing for people to say, there's nothing to respond to, or they're like, well, she's the expert, I guess she's right. They're less likely to push back. But when you share something and you're honest about it being half-baked, that's when you can really get people engaged. When was the last time you shared a provocative idea? Some of the stuff I was talking about earlier. When's the last time you shared an idea that kind of flies in the face of the powers that be? So now I'm talking a little more about poking the bear. You can do it in a nice way. I'm not talking about being unprofessional in any way. But if there are experts out there creating posts and there's stuff that you disagree with, that's a really good thing to talk about. And you don't have to call them out. If you want to, you can, but you could just say, I saw this advice out there. Or, you might think X, and it could be this thing that you disagree with, right? And then use that to kind of, structure your post and talk about why you disagree and what your experience is. Oops, someone just joined. Add them in. Okay. Is that my screen? Oh, there she is. Susan, a second. So I think that the easiest way to start, coming up with these innovative ideas and figuring out how to share them as posts, you can think about sort of 5 types of posts. You might think of these as, I don't know, templates of some kind or categories of posts that you could write. And it's helpful, I think, especially because when I'm thinking about the posts I'm creating, I tend to do kind of one type of post, like a lot. I do a lot of educational posts, for example, and then I say, oh, I'd like to mix it up. So it's nice to kind of have in my back pocket these 5 ideas or types of posts. So the first one is personal posts. We all know how powerful personal posts can be. I like to use them sparingly. Some people really love to share personal stuff and they do it a lot. And this is where, you hear the complaint sometimes that LinkedIn is becoming Facebook. I saw somebody who I follow who has a huge following. She shared about her third pregnancy yesterday. And that's amazing. Like, great. If you feel like sharing that kind of stuff, it's cool. Like, it really connects people. That post did really, really well. She had like 500 comments by the time the day was over or something. So I was like, oh, that's a way to go. But I personally like to use them a little more sparingly. And I think they're even more powerful when you do it that way, because whenever I share something personal, people are like, ooh, they pay attention, because I don't often do that. And, you can have a selfie or not. Selfies do really well on LinkedIn. And it's, I think, because of that personal connection. So personal posts are a great one. And then there's educational. And here, everybody's got their top 10 tips that they can share. And I think one mistake that people make is they share all those tips in the same post. But what you can do is dig deeper and share. You can think of it as a series if you want to. I don't think it's a great idea to announce it as a series, because no one really cares that much. That's not going to really help people like come back and see the next post in the series. I don't think that happens very often. But you can really dig deeper and share one tip and just like go really deep with it, go beyond the surface level. And I think that helps you kind of set yourself apart from other people doing similar work as what you're doing, because there's all kinds of people everywhere posting here's the top 3 tips, and I read them and I'm like, yeah, I've heard those 100 times. It's not impressive. But if you dig into it and start talking about your thought process around it, or give an example of how it worked for you or your client, I think then it can be really engaging and interesting. So I always say go deep with the educational stuff. I think we also shy away from going too deep. We think maybe we're getting too inside baseball or too nerdy, right? That kind of thing. But actually your audience loves it when you nerd out. At least that's what I find with my audience, that they really actually like it when I get into the weeds. And as long as you're not doing it every day, I think, that can get a little bit intense for people, but it's great to sort of nerd out on something. Process is another great one. So you're kind of pulling back the curtain and sharing a peek into how you do your work. Whenever I share about ghostwriting, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am surprised at how much people are like, tell me more. I always wondered how you did X, Y, and Z, and so I always think, oh, I need to do more process posts because people really like to hear about your systems, what you do. I think the fear here around sharing too much of our process is other experts in our field are going to see it and sort of steal our idea and use it, or our clients' prospects are going to see it and say, oh, I can do this myself. I don't need her now that I know the process. But that's not how it works. When you share a process post, people are like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. Look at that. I never thought of that. They're really, they get really invested in you and how you do things. They get even more curious, I find, about how you do things, not less curious or saying, oh, I can DIY this, not from a social media post. That's just not going to happen. If you wrote if you did like an ebook or a white paper about your process, that's a whole different story that might lead people to say, oh, great, I don't need her anymore. But otherwise, I think process posts are always a good safe bet. Then we've got a couple more markety kind of posts, I would say. So talking about your unique value proposition, and here I'm not necessarily saying, oh, I came up with my unique value proposition last week, and here's what it is. I'm sure a lot of us have seen these exercises. Come up with your unique value proposition. Think about your ideal client. Think about their pain points. Figure out how you solve those pain points and why they should work with you and not someone else. You can do that, but I think those kinds of posts, again, they're a little bit predictable or a little bit like, why should I care about this, right? So instead, I want you to more turn it into a little bit of a story. So if you're working on your unique value proposition, talk about that process. Or if you've recently had a revelation and pivoted in some way around the kind of value you're sharing, maybe you talked to a client and they gave you a real aha about the kind of value that you share. Like that's the kind of thing that I would say to share in a post. And so you can see how it's sort of a personal post, but it's still, obviously it's business related, and it could even be a little bit about process if you want to talk about your process of going through how you came upon your value proposition. I had a client go through this process in November, and they had a lot of stories to share just coming out of working on their unique value proposition. And we turned that into some LinkedIn posts for them, which were really, really well received. And then finally, your intellectual property or your framework. And this is really more about how you drive results. So again, this is a little more of a marketing kind of thing. You definitely want to hit on the results that you create for your clients as much as possible. And I think, it's a great place to pull in a testimonial. We've all seen testimonial posts, they can do well, but rather than just posting, hey, I got this great testimonial from my client, turn it into a story. Again, like maybe talk about the challenges that you had with whatever the client was trying to do. Not a challenge with the client probably, but a challenge with something they were trying to do, and you help them kind of work through it. Talk about a challenge, when we started working together, here's where they were at. And then through the course of working, they had this transformation, right? And here's the result in the end. And we were driving that result for them. Like talk about it in that sense, and then drop the testimonial and think about how much more powerful the testimonial is just because you've given it some context. You've sort of showed people what you can do. You've given them, like, all of these posts, what I'm thinking about is giving people a taste of what it's like to work with me. If I can do that, then I'm really happy. That and start conversations. That's sort of my biggest goal on LinkedIn. Yeah. So now what I want to do, if you're game, is workshop some posts. I think we could do them with any of those 5 types that I talked about, and probably in future hot seats, I'll switch it up. So you're not always doing personal posts, but I think personal posts are a good place to start because most people can kind of grab an idea, pull an idea out of their pocket to talk about with a personal post. So what I want to do is, first thing we're going to do is spend about 5 minutes doing some free writing. And I definitely recommend using this method to create posts on LinkedIn. If you can spend a little bit of time during your week just free writing some possible ideas, and then take that free writing and turn it into a post in a second sort of writing session in your week, it can create really great results. I think sometimes, especially with personal posts, it's like we rattle off a story and then we send it. And that's not the best way to turn, there are methods, and I'll share with you how I like to take a personal story and make it into a LinkedIn post. So that's where we're headed. I'm going to give you some prompts. You can pick one of these prompts to use. If you've done this before with me, I don't think any of you have done this before with me, but you could always choose a different prompt, or you can do whatever you want. But I think any of these prompts will work for this little exercise. So the first one is, what's the one story you tell that fascinates people the most? Like, what is this story? You're at a cocktail party with people, or you're sitting around with your friends. Here's the story that people are always like, oh, they get it and they want to hear more. Or what's the one thing you wish everyone knew about you and your business? I really like this one because no matter how long you've been in business, there's stuff that people don't know and you wish they knew, or you wish that you could, share with them. And that can be really great to play with for a post. Or what's the one thing you're scared to say out loud? So going back to that idea of, it's scary sometimes to share these kinds of posts. Let's lean into the fear a little bit and see what we come up with. And of course, this isn't going anywhere. You're not committed to posting about this, but I want you to play with how it feels and see if it makes it feel less scary to post this kind of stuff. So I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes, let you do some free writing. Again, don't think about creating the post. I'll show you how to do that, but just literally just tell the story, or just free write about your answer to one of these questions, and yeah, then we'll play. Take 5 minutes. Ready, set, go. That was 5 minutes. All right. I know it goes fast, right? Cool. All right. So now if anyone wants to share their story, I can show you how I would workshop it into a post. Happy to do that. If you have any questions before we get into that, let me know. Yeah, how did that feel for you telling the story? Feel free to come off mute. We're a small group, so.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of came with some ideas because I
Uh-huh.
knew we were
Yeah,
going to be,
great. Yeah.
because the kind of ideas I've had that I'm not sure, I just
Okay,
haven't sat down and,
great.
really thought too much about. So
Perfect. Yeah.
one is that I was looking at some paperwork from elementary school that my mom was,
Yeah.
trying to get rid of.
Uh-huh.
And I saw, on this, I don't know how old I was, pretty young because
Yeah.
the spelling was terrible, but
Yeah.
said, the teacher was asking, like, what do you like the most? And I wrote, the thing I like is making things.
Uh-huh.
And that is like, I'm an artist who writes, like, that's kind of how
Right. Yeah.
I came from an artist background, but I'm,
Uh-huh.
into writing now. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still doing both.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of like, where do I take that? Like, I love that statement and I relate to it
Okay.
still. So I
Yes.
wanted to make something out of that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. So I'd say take a picture of that, obviously the piece of paper, and that would be a great thing to share. I love you saying I'm an artist who writes. That I think could be a really good hook. The other
Mhm.
thing, the other hook that you talked about right at the very beginning was, I like to make things, or whatever the line is from the paper. Even if it's spelled wrong, I think that's even funnier. Like if you
Yeah.
use that as a hook. And then so look for the hook. That's the first thing you're going to do. You're going to take from your story, and then you can kind of launch into the story. And if you have a specific memory from when you were a kid and where you first learned that you really love making stuff, kind of share that as part of your story. I think that could be cool. And then
Mhm.
if you can connect it to a business lesson of some kind, I think these are the most effective personal posts. I mean, and even for you, I could see the business connection just being like, I'm still making
Yeah.
things and now I'm getting
Yeah.
paid for it, right? It's not just for fun, like that kind of thing. And then the last bit is a call to action. So you want to ask a question, or you want to, it can just be, for more of my musings, sign up for my newsletter, or, something like that. But I like a
Mhm.
question that starts conversations. So what's, something that you recall as from being a kid that is still resonates or still rings true today? How do you
Yeah.
see your present self being reflected in your past, that those sorts of things where people can kind of share their own little stories in the comments. I think that could be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Did you have other thoughts about how you might turn that into a post? I'm going to stop sharing my
Yeah, it
screen.
was kind of like I wanted to relate it to, what I'm doing now, I
Yeah,
guess was
right,
the
right,
way,
right.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
because I'm also, I am freelancing now, but I'm looking for something full time.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I kind of,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of going that direction.
Yeah, so you could certainly turn it into a post that kind of shares what you're looking for in a job, so your network sees like what's unique about you as a job searcher, and what, sparks in their brain, like, oh, I know somebody who's hiring for this. That might be cool. That
Yeah.
it could work in that direction as well. So again, I would share like specifics as much, get as specific as you can about how you think this makes you a really prime candidate for whatever kind of job you're looking for. This
Okay.
is in
Yeah.
my blood, that kind
Yeah.
of a thing. People love to see that, I think, and love to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think that would be a fun one.
Mm.
What other ideas did you have? You said you came with a couple different ones.
Let's see, another one. I guess, oh yeah, one of my freelance things is writing about writing for a flight school's social media. So
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
that gets hard at times. I'm like, I don't know a lot about
Yeah.
flight school or,
Right.
being a pilot. So I'm
Yeah.
constantly, I research it a lot, and,
Yeah.
just research and having it on my mind just,
Yeah.
always gets me into more ideas or other things to research. So I kind of wanted to highlight that, that once I'm in somewhere and
Yeah.
thinking about,
Mm,
whatever the challenges are, whoever hires me, I'm going to just grow into that and
Yes.
more, you know.
Yeah, I think that fits with the question, what's the one thing you wish people knew about you or your business,
Yeah.
right? You could play that up right there. Flight school is a really fun, that's a fun project to be working on and to be talking about if how, depending on how free you are to talk about the work that you're doing. But I think, saying, I don't know anything about flying. And I'm still able to write about it. Why? Because, I'm an artist who writes and I'm creative and I can come up with, the topics by doing a little bit of research and finding some inspiration, that kind of thing. I think that could really work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for a call to action on that, it might be, well, you could turn the question around on them, what's the one thing you wish people knew about you and your business? That's always gets a lot of fun responses, I think. Or what is the hidden gem trait that you have, the trait that is obvious to people just by looking at your marketing copy or that kind of a thing, like the hidden gems. I like those kinds of questions, the unusual, surprising stuff that you find. Yeah, I love those ideas. Very cool. Yeah, anybody else want to share a story? Yeah, Susan. Hey, welcome.
Thank you. This is great.
Good.
I love starting with your art story when you're going through your kids' stuff. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think so too. That's really fun.
Good stuff. I got a whole bunch, but
okay.
There's one that I tell.
Okay.
That is tied directly to the business. And it's my own sort of origin story.
Yeah.
Right. It starts when I was very little on a playground, when I saw, all the girls that were second class, and I realized the world, is all females or second class. And I saw my mother also as being very dependent. And so I equated all this stuff with weakness, and I was determined not to play there,
Yeah.
And, so I just bought into that whole male thing, and it made me a certain kind of person. I decided that, like, I sort of decided I was going to be like fiercely independent, not take anything from anybody. I made my own money, put myself through college, that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
It was like an Ayn Rand freak, And I also, I became really hyper rational. Everything was like how to think, and I majored in applied math, and I was all ahead space.
Wow.
The third thing was I was gonna do whatever it took to succeed, right? Whatever that meant.
Yeah.
So whether I was, it affected my health, whatever it was, I was just gonna make it happen. So that's kind of the work part mostly. It all tends to be related to work. And I realized there's also was another a huge incident that I sometimes start with, and that is that my having all this feminine weakness thing, and my father died very young, and he was the glue, in the family. So that was like this galvanized me. I was like, we were all in the fact I was the oldest, and right? So that just sent me way into that thing I just told.
Yes.
But then there was this realization of how unfulfilled I was after all these years of sensible success. And that set me on my own transformational journey. Brought me into wholeness, that I realized how powerful the feminine itself, the beauty of the feminine, and the power and the creativity and the intuition, and, realized how much I was suppressing and not, bringing to the world. And that recognition, that realization brought me to a whole new space, whole new way of looking at the world. And I brought it back. I've been in the corporate world. I brought these kinds of skills that I was learning in facilitation, coaching, things like that. So I'm bringing it back into the workspace, because that's where the power is for transforming that. So I try to use is that sort of my own transformation, a metaphor for bringing that to the world, and making it. So I've got a new collective people I put together this last year or so, and we we're about culture shifting, transforming leadership.
Yeah,
That's sort of that
yeah,
set.
yeah,
In fact, this is incredibly timely because we're all retching about how to create the copy for a website, and it's become ridiculous because I know that it can be very simple.
yeah.
You
Yes,
know, but it's been like, so
yes. I got it.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's so much here that you could play with. So I think one thing, you can certainly use this for promotional posts, and I think that it can be very effective. So if you want to talk about your collective and get more people into that, I would certainly dig into some of this information and share very personally why this is, your calling, and this is what, why you feel very strongly about how you're sharing this. So some kind of story, and probably several different ones that you could create promotional posts through. So you can talk about how your perspective on the world as a child really made you think that being like the men, like following the men, that is where success is, right? I think that's a really clear picture. And so that's, that can be a really nice way to share about your own transformation. In the end, I felt really unfulfilled doing this for so long. And now that I see the beauty and the feminine, and I bring all of that in, I think all of that is lovely to share. So you said you often share these stories, right? You've shared them before?
Well, yeah, a few, presentations, speaking
Okay.
engagements that,
Uh-huh.
I first did it. I actually first did it for the Elevate. You're part of Elevate?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Raise Her Voice they used to do.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And then in other venues, sometimes I start with that when I give another presentation.
yeah, great. So you're practiced at telling the story. And now the question is like how to make it into a post or several posts, probably, right? Because I think, so let's brainstorm maybe some hooks around that. I personally, I used to be an Ayn Rand freak. I think that would be a great hook. Yeah, if you want to talk about that, I think that's hilarious. I had a philosophy professor, I have a philosophy PhD, and so I often taught Ayn Rand to the students. And I have a philosophy professor who would love to say that he was like a teenage rebel, or he was a teenage rebel, and he really loved Ayn Rand as a teenager. And then,
Yes.
he grew up and he realized the error of the ways or whatever, that kind of a thing. So I could see you doing a post kind of like that. I love, talking about how, fierce independence. I feel that in my bones. I shared the story before on LinkedIn about how, I told my parents when I was like 3, I do by myself. That was like my favorite catchphrase. Let me do it by myself, and I'm like, it's your fault. Like, you all made me this way, but right. But I like to share that kind of stuff because I think that really resonates with business owners. I think a lot of business owners and coaches, people you would be coaching, have this independent streak. And I think you realize, I always say, asking for help is great, but you have to be grounded in your independence so that you can make good decisions about who's giving you the best help. So I could see you playing with that kind of angle, especially with the coaching stuff. And I could see a hook being do whatever it takes. You talked about that as being one of the big themes from childhood, or one of the big lessons you learned, like do whatever it takes, and how that can lead to burnout, how that can lead to, some of the pain points that your clients have. And then you could talk about results. You could talk about, you turn that into a results-based post with some of the results that clients have gained, being in that mindset and then shifting that mindset, that kind of thing could be really interesting. What else? You could do a post about your dad for Father's Day. Father's Day is coming up. You could certainly do something if you have a photo of him. Those do really well. Photo of you and him, and talk about how he was the glue. Dad was the glue. And when he died, I kind of took over the role. Right? I almost hear you saying, I was like the man of the house. Like as the oldest. I had to take on a lot of that. A lot of that burden, or a lot of that control and that kind of thing, and how you did that, and how that made you the business owner that you are. That's I think always tying it back to the business or tying it back to what clients are
Mhm.
interested in. But I think any of those could work. Yeah. Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah. I think several, like lots of posts in all that you said, right? Lots
Mm.
of ideas to play with. That's
Thank
really
you.
cool. Yeah.
Very much.
Anybody have other thoughts for Susan? Anything jumping out as you're listening?
The image that sticks in my mind is the image of you as a little girl on the playground and what you noticed and how you noticed it.
Yes.
Because I think we all remember what it's like to be that kid on the playground who notices something.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That's great. It's really good. Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah,
can,
that,
That's cool.
like you bring it full circle to like what you're doing,
Right.
that knowledge has stayed with you and how,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's evolves, through
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew from age
Fascinating.
3 that this was a man's
Yes.
world, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing, right? I
It was
noticed.
4. It was age
age
4.
4. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Right. Exactly right. I love that. Yeah, I could see, I could see you going in a lot of different directions with all of this. Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be a fun challenge to take the 5 categories of posts and do one of, do one of each with using, the free writing that you've got and the ideas that you've got here. You could certainly do that as a starting point.
Great. That's
Yeah.
really helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
All
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's so fun. This is my favorite thing to do. If I could do this all day, I would do it. I love workshopping content. Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Amanda? You post so many great personal stories. I feel like this is an exercise that would be very easy for you.
Yeah, I could talk about myself all day. I don't always do a good job bringing it all home,
Right. Yeah.
but I feel like I'm good at sharing. People feel like they know me because of what I share, which I love.
Yes, absolutely.
Where my brain went to was people think my passion is journaling, and it's not. I
love that.
like journaling
Yeah.
very much. It's helpful, it's useful, I rely on it. My passion is helping other people discover the magic of journaling and
Yes.
seeing it really come to life in their lives, to see how they can use it, to see how it lights them up when they're like, oh, wait, I can do this. That's what really jazzes me.
That's cool.
Journaling by myself, it's fine. It's useful. It's helpful. I appreciate it.
Right.
But it jazzes me being the bridge to other people.
Yeah. So I could see a hook for you. Journaling is not, capital N-O-T, not my passion. I could see that being a really good hook for you because everybody knows you as the journaling person because you're always right on it with that one big idea, which is great. That's good advice to follow on LinkedIn. Like I'm always posting about the one thing. I wish that I could do that for myself, but I like to be all over the place. It's easier for me.
Well, it helps to
yeah.
have a thing that's so big, everything ties back to it.
True, that's true. That does help. You've got a lot of fodder for posts all the time. Your life is your posts, and that's why that's great. Yeah, so I could say journaling is not my passion. My passion is, bringing other people into journaling. And here's why that's so cool. I think you do talk a bit about that quite a lot. I think for you, I would go for like all the surprising things, like that question about what's the one thing I wish people knew about me in my business. Like I would play with that, do some journaling on it yourself and see if you come up with some things that would be different and new to share. Because I think like everybody wants to hear what you have to say. And so, I know for me, that's true. I love the stuff. I love it when you talk about gardening. I love it when you talk about I'm taking a rest and I didn't intend to take this rest right now, but I'm taking a rest. I love to hear about that. Like the work-life balance. I see you as a person with a lot of great work-life balance. So leaning into that, like, I don't know, like what could you do that's related, but, new and different? Because you've been, so consistent about posting all the time. I'm sure you're like, what do I do today?
So I have 2 ideas. The
Okay,
first one, this is my half-baked idea.
Okay.
I was sitting in my hammock yesterday looking at my peonies. I have these gorgeous peony bushes. And I thought I had seen somebody talk about this grant that they wrote for a program and made it like sketched it out as like the water cycle. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. I'd like to do that with like a garden. So I kind of sketched out, a plant. And then I was like, well, what words come, like, what are the parts of the plant? I think of the roots, the stems, the leaves, and the flower, right? And then I came up with words that I associate with those parts. And then I got about a quarter of the way through it, and then my brain stopped. But like, what would like rooted journaling look like? What would foundational journaling look like? What would like the leaves of journaling look like, right? Leaves are lush, and really that's where the energy comes from. And it's after all of that work that you get the beautiful flower, which is like the self-discovery. It's the answer you're looking for. That's my half-baked idea.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah. I think you could start sharing
Sounds,
pieces
yeah,
of
pretty
that.
fully baked to me.
Yeah, like that's not half baked. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think you can definitely share that tomorrow. I mean, you could start, and I would break it up. So I would have a post about the roots, I would have a post about foundations, I would have a post about leaves, and then the flower. Like, you, again, think of it as a series if you want to. I don't think you should call it a series, because I think sometimes that's weird. But just, I had this, and you could even start it out as, you could just explain it just the way you explained it to us. I saw somebody writing about grant writing as a water cycle, and it made me think about gardening, and I'm such I love gardening, and how that relates to journaling and the different pieces. And I think, yeah, then you can launch into that. I think that would make a wonderful set of posts. I've been thinking a lot about the imagery of like an ecosystem for content, and how, in the environment, if you add too much of one thing, you destabilize the ecosystem. And and I think the same is kind of true for content. If you write all personal posts all the time, sometimes you lose your audience, because they're like, I know what she's going to say. I've heard all of this. So you got to kind of throw something in that's a little bit different to kind of renew the soil or something, that kind of thing. And I think that can be a special challenge when you've been posting a lot for a long time, and it's like, I don't know what's next. I don't know what else I have in the tank, those kinds of things. But the imagery is great. Yeah.
I have one more, and this is what came up when with your prompt, what is the one thing you're scared to say out loud?
Yeah.
So my thing is that people are going to figure out that they don't really need me. Like, I come from the world of DIY. So like so many things I see other people do. Even when I know eventually I'm going to break down and hire them, I always want to do it myself first, right? And so I assume that everybody else is the same way, especially in this world where there's so much information everywhere. Like, why would you want to journal with me? Why would you want my help? Like, it's just journaling, right? But then I think, people aren't doing it. They won't do it. They don't know how to do it. They want someone to hold them accountable. They want someone to lay out a plan for them. They want someone to cheer them on. They want somebody to give them permission that it's okay to stop if it's not working for them. And I feel like that's something that I've not touched on or embraced.
Oh, I love that too. And I could see the hook being, it's just journaling in quotes, right? It's just journaling. And then going into how, it's not just journaling. And I would say for you, each one of those things you said, I would make that into a separate post and talk, rather than like listing them all out. That's one way to go. Obviously, it's just journaling, and then, but you get all of this. You need somebody to hold you accountable. You need somebody this, and then that people want somebody to tell them what to do, that kind of thing. I think that's great. It's powerful as a list, but I would break it up and do posts on each one. The other thing that came to mind for me about that is that with AI, you could talk about AI, right? And I think, everybody's talking about AI to death, but I could see that, that could be something where, like, where in the world does journaling fit in if we're using AI to create all of this content for us, or we're using AI to write our emails, or, whatever, where does journaling fit in? Because I think one of the things that scares me the most about AI is what I hear from people who use it a lot is, I don't have to think anymore. There's like no thinking. I'm like, that's my nightmare. Like, that's my worst nightmare, right? So I think you could share about that. You could share about how you see AI affecting your work, or if you do see it, affecting your work, or you see it changing. I think it's going to change people's brains. And I think that we need to be kind of careful about that. And I think journaling could be one way of kind of pushing back against that, or it could be that, you don't need your brain at work, but that's why you have so much more brain power now to journal, or you have so much more, room to play with your thoughts in journaling.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I hadn't thought to go there, but as you were talking about, I don't need my brain. Like I came up with that image from WALL-E. Was it WALL-E, where all the people turn into blobs because they're out in space in their space cars? They don't need to use their legs anymore. That's the imagery that came up as you were talking.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so a picture of that, could be really fun. Something to mix it up. Mix it up a little bit and see what happens. I think that can be so powerful, especially given how consistent you are, and just to throw something at people that's like totally different off the wall. I think people be like, oh, that's when you might see a spike in things and going, it could be interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would like to see the experiment. Very cool. This was fun. I think we got some good ideas. Let me go back to my slides and see what's left there. Yeah, so what's next? Well, now the ideal thing is to go on LinkedIn and post and tag me, and I'll certainly come and give you some content love. If you feel like you need more content, more play before you're ready to post, or you just want to play with some more ideas with me, I'm happy to offer a 30-minute free call. Hop on. We can basically do what we did here, bring some ideas, and I'll actually help you map out the posts if you need more help with that and you really want to come up with the hook and all of that and nail it down. Happy to do that. So I offer that to people who come on these calls. So I'm happy that you're here. Very exciting. And yeah, I think that's what we've got. I do want to share, there's my email address. If you do want to hop on a call with me, just shoot me an email. We can make that happen. I have a scheduling link I'll share, and you can grab a spot. And I do want to share my guide with you. So let me grab that real quick. I'll put it in the chat. And yeah, if you have any other questions, I'm an open book. Let me know what you need.
Was that a pun?
Yeah, exactly. Unintentional pun. Yeah, exactly. All right, here's the guide. I updated it in March, so if you've seen it before, you might want to check out the updates. Probably needs to be updated again.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah,
I think
please.
you want to close, but I'm chopping in the bit because it's what's come up for me so viscerally, when Amanda was speaking about the two parts, I'm losing it. But what I felt in your first part was our connection to nature. You're doing your flower and how it works. It's like I saw a metaphor of our own growth. So you're bridging the nature with human, which what's happening is we've separated from nature. Now we really realize how part we are, right? And then it related back to like this AI thing, and you don't need to think, and you're bringing us to the heart, the human part, right? The heart part. And AI is not going to, it has no messing with that, right? So that's also what I'm dealing with the business, world is they can take away, AI may take away some certain kind of expertise in the head stuff, but it's not taking away our empathy and our connection and our human shared, capacities. So yeah, that was
yeah, that's great. Yeah, you could even talk about how journaling and AI can connect, because I think to make AI work really well for you, you have to ask the right questions, and having that reflection time to figure out what you can use it for, what you need it for, that could be a really great even journaling prompt, like here's your assistant, what are you going to make them do for you? How are you going to treat them. You've got to know what you're gonna, the tasks that you're gonna give your assistant so that they'll do a good job, you know, and that's even more true with robots. They need your explicit instructions to give you what you're looking for. Garbage in, garbage out, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Also, I think what Emily's doing in this room, which is great, Emily, you're bringing people together. So our ideas spark our other ideas, and you realize that you really can't totally do this in a vacuum yourself, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
so this whole idea of your journaling, why people would go to Amanda,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Can't, you know,
Mhm.
my mentor would say we can't become ourselves by ourselves,
Love it.
and that was profound for me, profound.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Mhm.
so it's a whole, it's a
Mm.
shift in, the patriarchal masculine thing,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
more community and
Yeah.
accountability and uplifting creating
Yes.
those spaces like you're creating right here.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, Amanda, I love the social journaling. I mean, you talk about it a lot, but I think it's so unique, and people don't think of how beneficial it can be to journal with other people and talk through it. And having been in your programs, like I know, like it's so different than when I just journal by myself. That's beneficial, but when I have other people there to talk to and spark ideas with, that's just a whole nother level that gets added in. And the quote was great, Susan. You could certainly look for other quotes, Amanda, and use quotes. Quotes are great hooks, if they relate to what you're trying to share as well. Yeah, I think that could be great. Well, this was lovely. It's always great to ideate with folks, and yeah, collaboration is a huge value for me, and so that's one of the reasons that I do this. So I'm going to keep doing it first Thursday of every month, and I'm going to work on getting some more people in here. Some more blood is fun, but this was lovely, and I really appreciate you all being here with me.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, I hope it's
you.
helpful. Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you,
and
Emily.
if you want to share your LinkedIn profile so we can all connect. I think I'm connected with all of you probably, but just in case, I'll add mine in real quick.
I put the name of the woman who
Oh,
quoted
the quote.
because
Yeah,
I
perfect.
didn't want it to show up and not give her the credit in case you decide,
That's great. That's great. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to be like the AI and not start citing our work, right?
Yeah.
I guess the paid version cites. That's what I really haven't played with it very much myself. But the more I keep hearing from people, I'm like, oh, I really need to.
Yeah.
There we go.
I guess mine's in LinkedIn and it's my name.
Okay.
I don't know how it's exactly written there. I just always have to go back to it.
Great.
It's like,
Sure. No, you're easy to find. Nancy C. Sampson. So perfect.
Yeah. Sometimes, people don't realize about the initial, but
Yeah.
I use it.
Got it. Yes. Susan name.
Great.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. This is really delightful. And I wanted to get to know you a little bit, Emily. And this is lovely being in this space with Amanda and Nancy.
Yes.
Yeah, great to meet everybody.
Wonderful. I love it. All right. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.